After the French Revolution, Napoleon Bonaparte seized power in 1799, transforming the Republic into an empire, and then began a series of wars in Europe to gain more power and more riches for the French Empire. At the same time, in Hastings, it was growing as a popular destination. Seaside excursions for people, invalids, and the seaside air was considered to be a real boon to anybody suffering medical problems. Hastings was trying to sell itself as a sort of a polite place for genteel folk, especially with a little bit of character, which obviously tourists do like a little bit of character, like the old town would have been right up their street. In particular, for nerves, lungs and melancholy, a very Georgian concern. Georgian society was totally obsessed over manners, etiquette and appearances. Being well-spoken and well-dressed mattered. Even Karl Marx recommended it. When Friedrich Engels went to New Brighton to recuperate, failed and then thought about the Isle of Man, Karl Marx wrote to him, "Why not go to Hastings, which is famed for its efficacy in cases like yours? It's the only specific watering hole of the kind in England. The Isle of Man is remarkable chiefly for its stench." Being well-spoken and well-dressed mattered enormously, even while gossip, scandal, debt and affairs thrived. I say affairs, I mean, well, sexual and business affairs. You'd think that the people wouldn't flock to the coast where a naval invasion force might suddenly land in the midst of them having an ice cream, although obviously ice creams didn't happen for many years after this. But the fact of the matter was that even while France was trying to form a blockade against her, France was no match for the Royal Navy as such at those days. So we were fairly safe and secure, so people could go about their business and have a nice holiday and wear kiss-me-quick hats and or the 18th century equivalent, whatever that was. Meanwhile, the boom in building was continuing. Bathing machines, lodging houses like the elegant terraces like Pelham Crescent were built to rival attractions in Brighton. France wanted to blockade Britain and starve it into submission. He wanted to starve us out. He was particularly unsuccessful with this device. And part of that lack of success is down to the smugglers, because we already had a very strong network of smugglers from the early days of the 18th century who were used to nipping in and out all over the place. So Britain's smuggling community suddenly became a lot more viable and less illegal. In fact, they were pretty much free to do what they wanted as long as they also smuggled some of the goods in and out that were necessary. And to be fair, Napoleon also allowed smuggling because they were desperate for some of the materials in France. They couldn't get a lot of the materials that we had over here, even the tea, the spices, many other goods. You know, they were reliant on England for some of that. So, and they weren't getting enough. And economically speaking, France was in a much worse state than we were. So while they were trying to blockade us, they were the ones who were in a bad way in terms of food, in terms of many other materials. And they were finally defeated in 1815 at the Battle of Waterloo. And that was really the finish of it. And that was because the smugglers helped England in this matter and were quite important and integral to the whole getting around the blockade business. After the Napoleonic Wars, in front of what is now called Breed's Place, several privateer cutters were laid up. This was around 1816. Privateering had been a popular pursuit of the seafaring portion of the townspeople, for though attended with much and perhaps more risk than smuggling, every privateer carried guns. It was a pursuit that paid very well. 9 gunboats hailed from Hastings when the war was at its height, each mounting 2 18-pounders, and there were 11 fishing boats who didn't want to be left out, and they were all armed with 2 12-pounder cannonades.